Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Italy Travel Podcast. I'm Darcy Melton.
And I'm Nathaniel Mellor.
And today we're talking about headlines.
We are indeed. It's another toasty Tuesday. And I must admit, I'm enjoying it, which sounds a little, a little sad, given the fact that it's just brutally hot, but
yes,
it's a nice difference from brutally cold.
Yeah, we're lucky too, because although it's hot, it's not dangerously hot where we are.
Exactly.
And we have a house with thick walls and a decent breeze, so we're okay.
And it's really nice to be hot. It's been 6 or 7 months of being cold, so it's just nice that it's feeling something different for the first time in a while.
Yeah, exactly. And before we get into talking more about the heat and other headlines, we want to thank everybody who has been following and leaving reviews for this podcast. If you enjoy what you're hearing, you can follow and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also go check out our Patreon. Big old shout out to Ariel and Austin, our Rigatoni tier members. Thank you so much. If you want to be like Ariel and Austin, go check out our Patreon. You can also join the chat there for free. You can also go to our website, onlyabag.com, where we have lots of articles written by myself and Nathaniel, and you can reach out to us there as well.
Thank you all so much for listening.
Thanks so much.
So, I guess before we get totally started on the Italy headlines specifically, there are 2 European headlines I wanted to mention first. And, well, the first one is, you might have already seen this. It is the fact that Europe, or the European Central Bank, has put forward, I think, 8 new options for currency. And there's an open survey. I think anyone can take the survey. I believe
anybody can do it. You scroll through to look at the different designs. They have examples for what the €5 through the 500 euro bill, front and back. And you can scroll through the designs and give your opinion. And then at the end, it will ask, where do you live in the EU? Or I don't live in the EU. So anybody can do it.
Which is funny because one of the, I like this currency or I don't like this currency. And one of the options is I like it because it looks European, or I don't like it because it doesn't look European. So I do think that it's interesting that something they are paying attention to is, does our currency look European, whatever that might mean. But it's kind of fun, and they are not sure. I don't know if there's a specific day they're going to roll out the new money. But I know that by the end of this year, 2027, they do want to have a finalized. We're 2026.
Yeah, okay.
Ooh, I just gained a year there, y'all. That's fantastic news. I didn't know where we were.
So by the end of 2027?
By the end of 2026, they want to have a finalized currency.
Oh, okay.
And I assume it's to start printing in 2027. But because I think the whole point of changing it is to update the security features. And there's all these little techniques they're doing to make it more energy efficient to produce and then more durable, so they last longer, the bills, and they can stay in circulation longer.
Okay.
So the idea is to be a more green currency.
Cool.
So we'll see how that goes. But I thought that was kind of fun. If y'all want to go and take the survey, we'll stick the link in the description if you want your voice to be heard for how the next generation of European money will look.
Yeah, and the themes are birds and buildings.
Ugliest buildings you've ever seen.
It's an odd combo as well, and it's mostly government buildings.
It's all the European sort of the buildings that represent the European Union. So It's the High Court, it's the Treasury, it's the those kinds of things. Like where we normally be the Senate and the this and the that, but it's just because it's also very new. These buildings, they're not
the thing.
Particularly
I'm sure
beautiful.
They are lovely in real life.
Sure.
I don't want to take anything away from the architects who designed them. They are a bit generic looking. So in terms of something interesting, they don't really compare to the birds on the other side.
Exactly.
And then the other option is famous Europeans. And then what goes along with the famous Europeans?
I think it's just different scenes that sort of...
Oh, it's like people doing European things. But they're not even European things. They're people coming together. So it's like people at a park, people in a library.
People I think one is somebody performing with a guitar, I think, or something like that, on the street, like a busker.
Okay.
So it's supposed to be slices of European life mixed with famous European just people. I think contributor people have contributed to making Europe and then birds and buildings.
Yeah.
The birds and buildings so far have a lot of people in love with them because it's birds. Who doesn't like birds? The buildings part is a little less exciting.
The buildings part's not my favorite. But,
No.
it's an option.
Yeah.
So go check it out.
And the other headline that might not affect you because you're probably listening to this as a tourist and coming to Italy as a tourist, but Europe, I think since we've last done headlines, Europe has now sort of created, if you will, a €3 tax on any item coming from outside the European Union. This does not mean in suitcases or anything like that. This just means if you purchase something while you're in Europe from outside of Europe, online typically, then you have to pay €3 for each item that you're purchasing, not for the entire package or parcel. So if you ordered, I don't know, a box of Beanie Babies, you have to pay €3 per Beanie Baby, not €3 per box of Beanie Babies. This is just causing a lot of, it's created some interesting discussions, I'd say, because I'm from the United States, and I think coming from the United States, Amazon is sort of like where you buy things, like for people who buy online, that is like the name, right? Like, oh, I just went to Amazon and I bought like a new lamp and then some clothes and also,
groceries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's the kind of the catch-all. Here, it's not as big as like AliExpress or Alibaba. Alibaba obviously is the sort of larger company. AliExpress is their more direct to consumer versus Alibaba's direct to reseller. So I think Alibaba usually has like a minimum of 50 keychains or
a wholesale
wallets
situation.
Exactly. So people here really use AliExpress, and I had no idea because they use it for like buying toys for their kids or backpacks or clothing and literally anything. If it's for super cheap, that's the other sort of issue, is that the same thing on Amazon that might be $20. I think somebody posted recently a picture of a wallet. There's the same wallet on Amazon as €25, and I think it's €2.38 on AliExpress. So people shop from AliExpress, and now that there's €3 per everything on that order, it makes it a little bit more, not as sort of budget friendly to purchase, but it's a big push to sort of buy European, which doesn't necessarily work because people are just now reselling the same things they were selling for €3 more. Hasn't really turned people back towards buying European. But it's a way of trying to basically cut down, I think we've talked about before, like ethical consumption, sustainable consumption, and sort of how Shein and Temu and things like that have sort of taken over these spaces of, just sort of unchecked consumption. This is supposed to put a bit of a check on it. Like, hey, you can still buy $40 worth of, random stuff off of AliExpress or Temu or Shein, but it's now going to cost you $70. And that might be something where you're thinking, oh, if it's $70, I might as well just go to some local, clothing store instead, which, arguably is still sourcing from the same place.
Yeah, it's a good thought. And I think there is a version of this that will work, but it will have to be tweaked a bit because there's also specific kinds of goods that you can't get made in Italy.
100%.
For
100%.
Lots of different industries, you have to source something from outside of Italy because it's just not made here. So that's something that might have to change. But I think a lot of people are on board with not having so many goods that are overconsumed, poorly made,
Exactly.
not made in a place that has equitable working conditions, things like that. So,
or also, and I think one of the big ones, especially with just AliExpress, is they don't have to adhere to the same standards of safety in terms of not in the factory, but for the products. So with like kids' toys, it's a big one. They don't have to use certain lead-free paint or whatever it is because it doesn't have to adhere to European standards. It's if you're buying directly from a company in China, it's just like.
So even if it's purchased through the EU, it doesn't have to adhere to those standards?
And I think that's because it's not being resold in the EU. It's just like you purchase direct to consumer, and it's kind of like purchasing a rug from Kuwait or something. It's just like you don't have to import it and go through all the fees. You're just like, oh, they just stuck it in a box and shipped it to me. I don't know if Kuwait does rug making, But it's a sort of a different process where you don't have to necessarily do all the checks and balances.
Which makes sense for some products, but if you're just buying a lot of stuff and you assume that, I think especially with kids' toys, any products for children, if you assume that they are made to a high standard of health, and perhaps they're not, that's dangerous.
Exactly. So it has become a conversation. I don't think it will affect your trip at all. It is just something that people are talking about, and I can imagine there might be some sort of protests about this coming up. It has sort of been there's just been a big push of this is ridiculous, don't do this. And then there's been a push of this is a great first step, do more. Really try to get like even these resellers on board with, because even we talk about this so often with this sort of the souvenir shops that sell these mass produced goods, typically from places like China, and are buying them for cents on the euro, I guess. I was going to say on the dollar, and are reselling them for 4 or 5 euros. And this is now, in theory, supposed to cost them 3 euros per everything they're buying for 10 cents each. So it's now 3 euros and 10 cents.
Which will likely be passed on to you. If you're buying a souvenir or something that is made outside of Italy, it will likely now cost 3 euros more than it did a couple months ago.
So that's something just to also keep in mind. But yeah, it's become part of this sort of daily conversation, if you will. And of course, some people do have some very valid arguments in terms of, having to buy specialist equipment that, as you just mentioned, is not made in the European Union, because this applies for United States. This applies for England even. If you're buying like used books from England, it's 3 euros per book coming into the European Union.
I think about some of the art supplies that I buy. I don't buy, overly specific items or anything like that, but there are some things that just aren't manufactured in the EU. They are often made in the UK, and those are going to be 3 euros more now.
Yeah. Well, if they can even get shipped, because most of those are flammable and are not allowed to be imported.
Shipped,
yes. They have to be created in the European Union, which again leads to that other problem of, you can have them, you can buy them, you can make them, you just can't import them.
Yeah.
So that has been the two other unrelated headlines, but just some things you might see people talking about the new currency, and you might see either potentially protests, maybe signs, maybe just, you're in Rome one day and you see a group of people yelling about the 3 euros and you're like, what is this 3 euro thing? That's what it is. Just wanted to keep you all informed.
Yeah.
So on to the actual headlines for Italy.
Let's talk about strikes.
Hit me with it.
There are virtually no strikes this month.
Great segment.
And that's been strikes. No, I do have a little bit more. So there is going to be a helicopter strike on the 4th, a rail freight strike on the 5th, a road freight strike on the 10th. None of that will affect you. And that is because the Ministry of Infrastructure and Transport does not allow for transport strikes during August that will significantly affect all of the people traveling during this, vacation heavy month.
That makes sense.
Which is really cool. So obviously it's not only a big month for tourists, for people coming from outside of Italy, but it is a big month for Italians vacationing. So they don't want anything that's going to significantly hinder millions of people who are traveling right now.
That makes a lot of sense, yeah.
And though there aren't strikes necessarily this month, there are a couple of maintenance things going on railways. So the Florence to Rome high-speed line will be rerouted to the regular speed line from August 10th to the 28th. So that's going to add about an hour and a half to everybody's high-speed journey.
And I think that it's usually about an hour and a half journey, so it basically makes it 3 hours. It does make it a little less of a day trip.
Yeah.
When we did it, I think a couple of years ago, they had the same thing. They were rerouting people on the slow track. It's not the end of the world, but instead of leaving at 9 and getting in at 10:30, you're leaving at 9 and getting in at noon. And then you realize you have to leave, by 7 to get back by 10. So it does cut a little bit into the day trip, only if you're going between the 10th and the 22nd, though.
28th.
28th of August.
Yes. And then also from the 10th of August to the 18th of August, the Milan-Bologna rail will be affected. So the Milan to Bologna rail line will be closed, and that will be replaced by buses.
Ooh, interesting.
Yes. And that's affecting Frecciarossa, Italo, intercity, regional trains. Every train, essentially, it seems, will not be passing between Milan and Bologna between the 10th and 18th of August.
That's a huge distance, though.
Yes.
Because I think, so for some of you, this might not matter. If I'm not mistaken, a fair number of trains from Rome, for example, will stick to the west side and they'll go up, like basically past Pisa and continue going. They won't go over to Bologna. But some of the trains from like Venice, for example, aren't a direct over to Milan. They will go down to Bologna and then back up to Milan, from Venice down to Bologna, up to Milan. Not all of them, I think just some of them based on the lines. So this will only affect some of you, but that is definitely something to keep an eye out because, again, this will probably double, if not triple, the travel time there. Given the fact that those trains go something like 320 kilometers an hour and a bus should not go 320 kilometers an hour. It will probably go somewhere like 120, I think, 100. So keep in mind that if you are planning on Bologna to Milan, even as a transfer, or if you are in Bologna going to Milan, then you might have to sort of add on some travel time between the 10th and the 18th?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's only 8 days, but that is a significant hindrance in those 8 days.
For sure. And one other note I just wanted to throw in, it's not a headline, it's just we are obviously kind of back in a heat wave. This will probably continue. We talked about this before in the heat wave episode. The heat waves will probably continue until September. But keep in mind that when it is hot, oftentimes, at least in the last 7 years that we've been here, 6 years that we've been here, there's usually something that breaks down on the rails.
Yes.
So, they're meant to operate in 100 and something odd degrees, but when it's that hot in full sun, they do get to like 140, 150 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm not sure what that is in Celsius. So things tend to either kind of break down or they have to stall or pause. So just keep that in mind as you do travel this summer. Specifically, if you're coming in, again, September, you're probably fine. It's more just from now through August that if there's intense heat, try to factor that in. They might have to slowly go slower. They might have to take the long way if there's a problem with the track. I think sometimes they'll just sort of not cancel certain routes, but push them till later in the day or, try to fix the route. So
I came across something the other day that was talking about in Cinque Terre how every year, because of the heat, there are issues with the train track. And I wonder if that is because it's a specific track and it's used so frequently and some of it is exposed. So that's just, I don't think it's specific to Cinque Terre. It happens all over Italy, but that's just a place that you might be where it consistently, the rail line there has an issue every summer.
And I would be willing to bet it happens in a lot of places only because the Cinque Terre train is a regional train at the Regionale. And I don't think it's at the same specifications in terms of like, I think the fast train, the Ferragosto or the Italo has to, the tracks can only expand and contract so much before it becomes a danger. I think the Regionale, because it goes so much slower, there's a slight bit more room. But when it really expands, then it just sort of cannot pass safely. So just keep that in mind, I guess, this summer.
And speaking of things that might inconvenience you and happen every summer, Ferragosto. Segue.
These Italians and their holidays.
So Ferragosto is specifically it's August 15th is the holiday, but really it kind of these days pertains to just the holiday period of August. So almost every Italian will be taking vacation in August. Obviously, some people will do it in July or September to keep businesses open, but many, many businesses will be closed in August. So if you are vacationing here, just keep that in mind. If you see lots of shops closed, that's normal. People are on vacation.
We've noticed, especially just mostly in general, that seaside towns tend to remain the most open because that's where people are going and that's where the businesses there don't want to miss out. They're not going to take their vacation during everyone else's vacation.
Right.
The bigger cities, Rome, Milan, or maybe bigger hotspots, so like Venice and Florence even, will pretty much remain mostly open. As you get away from the tourist center, that's where you're going to start seeing things closing. I think as things are more traditionally run rather than tourism specific. And then I think the biggest places we've noticed are small to mid-sized cities like Perugia, Siena, even So like Naples, things will probably be open, but Salerno, for example, more things closed. Even though it's on the sea, they don't have as much seaside tourism as say like, well, the Amalfi Coast. So some people do take their vacation there, especially if they're not like a business specifically for tourism, if they're just a business. So this is just simply to say you might have a kind of an interestingly weirdly varied experience where you're thinking there's no one on the outskirts of Rome, and then there was tons of people on the sea, and then there's no one in.
You and I notice this especially at bakeries.
Yes.
Because we tend to go to pastry shops and bakeries frequently, and especially when we visit somewhere, we have a list of the ones we want to go to, and those are often things that will take their regular vacation in August. And I'm thinking specifically in Rome, there are a number of famous ones that are like old, or they're just famous in general, and they might be taking just a regular vacation.
I think Bonci, Bonci, they're famous. And I think we were there once in August, excited because we were going to show somebody Bonci.
Yeah.
And they were closed for holiday. And we're like, well, that makes sense. But why are you closed for holiday? But it is that thing of, it's not necessarily for tourists. It's just for people who live there. So
there's a famous one that is old, and I can't remember the name of it. I'll put it in the description just as a point of reference. I think it's in Prati, Trastevere. It's just in a neighborhood. You and I happened to cross it one day, and I recently learned that, I mean, we loved it, and it's also beautiful and old, but I recently learned that it's quite famous. I can't remember the name.
Right, you just said that? Sorry.
I have a photo of it on my phone. There was a bicycle outside. That doesn't narrow it down for you.
No, but
that's someplace that I imagine. I mean, I think it's run by like a mother and daughter.
Oh.
So that's someplace that I imagine they likely will be closed.
Yes.
They're in a neighborhood. They mostly serve local people. So, just things like that. It's good to keep in mind.
Especially those finger food, like the Pizza Italio places sometimes will close in Rome if they're not like right next to something that tourists will go see, basically. So it might affect your trip slightly. Definitely the 15th, and there will be things happening on the 15th usually. So check wherever you're going, because there might be something really fun. It might there's almost certainly a procession. Is that Rome's procession on August 15th? Is that when they do the Mary down the river, or is that a different?
I don't
Is
remember.
that not Ferragosto? There's almost every town, like even where we are, there's, a procession, there's concerts, there's fireworks, there's, some sort of festival happening. So everyone will have typically something, and this can be great to add on to your trip. However, if you're not into any of that, then it's also good to know where to avoid and where to plan around. Having taken just a very quick pause there, what I was thinking about is a procession in Trastevere, where they float a Mary down the Tiber.
And that's in July, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Probably is drawing to a close fairly soon, if it has not already. I think their last day is Sunday. I don't know if it was last Sunday or this upcoming Sunday, which would be technically August. But that is not Ferragosto, so strike that one off the list.
But August 15th is the Assumption of Mary observed by Catholics, and it's also Ferragosto, so certainly there will be processions, there will be fireworks, there will be festivals going on across the country.
Food is somehow going to be involved.
Yes.
So if this sounds good to you, definitely check out where you're going to be on the 15th, plan around it, and potentially plan on that definitely not being a travel day, but being a kind of an in-place day, because you might find something really cool. It's just a big festival.
Exactly. So next, let's talk about wildfires. You have probably seen in the news, wildfires are raging across basically the world, but there are a lot in Europe right now. I think the worst affected places are France and Spain, right?
I believe so, yeah.
And there are obviously others across Europe, and Italy is being affected by these as well. Every year, there are wildfires in Italy. In our neck of the woods, there are often wildfires, just things get very, very dry. In Sicily, you might be seeing wildfire sort of warnings. I think Palermo, and there's a small town whose name is Agrigento. That area is being affected, I think, as well as Catania and Siracusa are also getting, wildfire warnings. Sardinia is also having some problems with wildfires. So just bear that in mind that is happening.
There's one also, I think, in Puglia recently. I think it's still
in
there.
Gallipoli.
Okay, there we go. So there are definitely going to be some. it might not affect your trip. I think even in Sicily, where it's like the biggest one in Italy right now is in sort of southern central Sicily. They've had to evacuate some people, I think about 120 people from a small town.
And that was in the Agrigento area, right?
Yes, I believe it was, which is important if you are thinking about visiting the ruins of Agrigento, and you might want to plan on the fire, I guess. I mean,
just being aware for safety and
being aware
and knowing what's going on in the local area,
And I think at this point too, I have not, specifically speaking of the fire outside of Madrid and in Bordeaux, as the two biggest ones, Spain and France, I have not seen any news about like airport closures at this point.
Okay.
So not to take a very practical, like tourist forward friendly sort of look on this, but it doesn't look like it's affecting tourism in that sense right now. It doesn't look like they're not grounding
Which is
flights.
odd because people are being heavily evacuated from those areas, and there's a lot going on there. So you would think that they would be closing people coming in for tourism reasons, not people going out.
Exactly. And I don't know if I know that Madrid has a bunch of, like, Iberia, I believe, is their national airline. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of transfers there from people. I mean, I was thinking specifically people coming to Italy. So I'm not sure if it's just too big to close at this point, or if they have their own, or if it's nowhere near the fires. If it's like the fires on one side of Madrid, airports on the other, the wind's not even blowing towards the airport, so there's no point in closing it. But these, just to kind of keep that in mind as you are preparing to travel, even if you're not going to a place with fire, it might still affect you via airport closures or, so, I mean, the wind blows, I think, like
the Scirocco, which is the wind that comes up from Africa every year, which is a beautiful wind, is right now pushing the wildfires, and combined with all of the dryness that is around, is spreading the wildfires. So yeah, just be aware of that. And an interesting thing, if you're like me and you never experienced anything like wildfires until, now, if you see a helicopter with essentially like it looks like a bucket, yeah, or like a net that it's, it will hold water. Anyways, helicopters will go and dip this bucket into the ocean and then fly back to the wildfire to put out the wildfires. So if you see that happening, that's what that is.
I think last year we were at the beach and it felt a little bit sort of like the fiddling while Rome is burning sort of feeling, where we're all at the beach having like, a beach day with all these people. And
well, you can smell it too. And the wildfire was far off. We also looked it up. It wasn't injuring any people. It was being quickly,
it seemed also like a farmer's fire got out of hand. Mm-hmm. And this was more of a way to quickly nip it in the bud.
Right, before it spread. But it is incredibly eerie because we're having a beautiful beach day with a bunch of other people, and you could smell the fire and see the helicopters going to scoop water out of the sea to go fight the fire. It
definitely one of those moments where you're realizing like that, obviously two people not that far apart are having two very different experiences on the same day, where, I think because we smell smoke around here so frequently that it becomes not a warning, if that makes sense.
It's pretty normal. People will burn. We live in the country, so there's so many people will just pick up the stuff from the farms into piles, burn that. It's very normal.
But also some of our neighbors still use wood as a way to heat their water, in terms of like they have like a water boiler, but they use wood instead of like propane or electricity or whatever it is. So for taking hot showers in the evening in the middle of summer,
you still got that fire.
They will have a fire going to keep their water hot. So it does kind of, it feels so like common that I think when you're in a place like the beach where you're like, there's no, it doesn't make sense. Like you're smelling smoke and you're like, of course I'm smelling smoke everywhere in Southern Italy, it feels like, but it is in fact not normal.
Yeah.
So I guess just keep that in mind if you're at the beach and you see helicopters, wave and offer them a beer when they land.
I also say that because I think whenever we first saw them, I was really confused about what was happening. And my mind went to, I wonder if they're airlifting a large sea animal or something like that.
A porpoise.
A porpoise or a whale, or just, I don't know, rehoming a fish. So I was
Could
really
be all of
confused. So that's I just wanted to explain what that is.
That makes sense. So we're not to end off on a wildfire note, but they really. I'm saying this now on July. I really don't know what year or month it is. On July 28th, is it? Mm-hmm. That it really shouldn't affect you right now. But mm-hmm. I do know that some Spanish meteorologists and climatologists are forecasting the fires to rage until November. Not necessarily the ones outside of Madrid, but because there's so many resources being put towards that, it's just sort of, they're like, there's only so many fires we can fight at once. And some are a priority and some are just burning through farmland, and it's mm-hmm. not as big a priority compared to cities.
Right.
So they're forecasting them lasting until November. Again, where we are, we've had fires that do kind of burn half a mountainside in a night because it starts. And I think the year before, at night, I think we all realized all at once that these lights kind of coming down a mountain were fire.
Well, we were at a local festival up at the top of town, and if this is the same time you're talking about, and I looked over because you can see other mountains across from our town, and I thought, oh, there's there's another festival going on over there, and then I thought, there's not a town over there, that's just forest, and I think you were the one who pointed out that's fires dotting the mountain,
and it was kind of, again, quite eerie because, fire likes to travel, and mm-hmm. we're only connected by other dead brush between mm-hmm. us and the fire. So it's a little, obviously I think everyone who's been in a wildfire, it's like, it's not a problem until it's very much and a very immediate problem. Mm-hmm. So just keep it in mind as you go this year to Italy, to anywhere else in Europe that may or may not be currently engulfed in flames. It's just been a very, very dry, very hot, as we talked about last headline episode, very hot summer, and we haven't had rain here for like a month and a half, so things are just going up like Tinder, so to speak.
They literally are Tinder. One note is that one year we were in Rome in the summertime. There was a fire.
True.
What was in a garbage bin? Where was it? We could smell it and see the plume of smoke.
It was a garbage dump, I believe, or garbage collection facility, where all the people drop off the garbage and they process it. Something had caught fire. Stop throwing away y'all's vapes. But that's, I think, usually what happens is the battery that is not supposed to be thrown away is thrown away, gets crushed, and then it catches fire. But vapes are the big ones.
And I mentioned that because to me, that was like a catastrophe sort of moment. I was really suddenly incredibly worried. Rome's going to burn again. It was just very scary for me. So even though we have wildfires here, and I guess I'm more used to them and I feel like it's more manageable, I don't know why. Anyways, so if you happen to see something like that, if you actually see a fire, you can call the fire brigade. But if you don't actually see the fire and you're just panicking about it, don't worry. The firefighters and everything are really on top of all of this, so there is no need to panic.
Exactly. And we hope that that has just filled you with a sense of confidence for your trip to Italy.
Yes.
And that you enjoyed hearing about some of the headlines. And on Friday, we will come back to y'all with even more headlines that probably have less to do with your trip and are just more recent happenings in Italy that you might find interesting before you come, so you feel sort of up to date and, cultured, I guess.
Exactly.
Before coming to Italy. So we hope you enjoyed this episode.
We hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for listening. Tanti abbracci.